probably a week ago. I'm not sure I would say yes now based on, again, the test stuff and all that.
Yeah. Well, listen, you've come back from the CSM Summit, which is where the players, some of the elected player representatives, go up and talk to to CCP. How did that meeting go?
I think it went mostly positive. There's definitely some things. I think I'd said this 4 months ago or whatever. There's some things we're concerned about, but I think that CCP recognized the things we're concerned about. There may be some communications issues within CCP, but I think that everyone generally has their heart in the right place and is looking to do the right thing for Eve. So overall, okay. The drama that happened at the summit was not with CCP or even about CCP or Eve. The drama actually was a lot of personal stuff that happened. Like, this was the weirdest summit ever, probably in the history of CSMs. I mean, it had nothing to do with Eve. So, but we can't go into that. I don't want to like out people's, but it was very interesting.
Mm. Well, our Imperium stream of 9,000 so far is hit the front page of Kotaku. That's pretty cool.
Great for Eve.
Yeah.
Yeah, Eve has been hitting a lot of interesting places in the past 24 hours.
Down. Very nicely done.
Envious are going to try to clear out the...
Well, we're keeping... Sorry, go ahead.
I said, yeah, it's definitely been hitting a lot of places, especially with that nice head title of $1 million battle.
I was just looking at I was at the office early today. I was just looking at the statistics from Google Trends just to see what the search behavior has been like over the past 24 hours, and noticed a massive uptick, like over, I'd say, it looked like 7 or 8 times as much searches for Eve Online just as that post was published, and then it sort of went back down to about twice as much or 2.5 times as much as it usually is. So it's like obviously directly generated a lot more interest for Eve.
Great. Well, we're happy to have Billy back after an hour-and-a-half break or so. He is an FC for Test, and he's been an FC for a long time, including for the Imperium and Goons. He's been in these big fights many times over. Very experienced guy, and he's walking us through some of the stuff that's happening inside the combat zone. Thanks for coming back, Billy.
Good to be back. Sorry, I had to go do some work stuff there. Just trying to get a handle on what's going on right now. Looks like the battle's kind of progressing, I guess. It's still repairing, so that's definitely positive for the Imperium. It'll take me a few minutes here to kind of evaluate what's going on. It looks like the fighter blob is at least doing a significant amount of damage, and if I'm seeing this right, the carrier blob is mostly still in its position, and I don't know, the battleship and super carrier blob of PanFam forces is kind of set up here as well.
Cool. Well, go ahead and get yourself situated. We know you just came back.
For those new to Eve, like what I was trying to explain this to, I guess, one of the CCPers the other day is, this is sort of like medieval warfare where you have like trebuchets and catapults. Like, imagine the carriers and the super carriers sitting on one side. They're catapulting their fighters over the keep and doing damage, and vice versa for the hostiles, right? And then you have little subcaps, infantrymen waging war kind of around the Keepstar. But there's a lot of analogs to kind of medieval warfare in Eve.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. This is an all-day thing, everyone, so we have to break away back and forth, and I just had to go get a package from the front door. So where do we leave off? Aerith, you were just saying?
I was just comparing Eve to medieval warfare. And Billy just got back, so...
Ragnar, I'm sad. Can anybody hear me?
I hear you.
Is Ragnar AFK or something?
I think he's down there in where that big humongous battle's going on.
Oh, 9-4?
No, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep, now we can.
Yeah, there we
Okay,
go.
I had my mic turned off. My stream is only playing my mic non-stop, so it's really annoying. I don't know how to turn that off, so I have my mic turned off. But I spawned into the system 1,000,000 kilometers away from the gate. I have the stream up on in general there.
What software are you using for broadcasting?
It's the shadow play.
Oh, you're just using straight off of your graphics card.
Yeah, essentially. I should have used my OBS, but oh well.
I was gonna say I found a C5 with sites, loads and loads of sites, and nothing to run them with.
I know I'm gonna whore on this Keepstar and hopefully whore on some kills. I'm gonna warp in on the Keepstar grid, take 4 days to load grid, and then hopefully see if I can ping around a little bit and get on some kills.
Nice. Make the kill board look pretty.
Good fun warping around big fights like this, and even just killing pods and stuff. I'm in low sec or null sec, so it doesn't matter.
Well, you know, if it wasn't for that, I'd be there. Yeah, Chris, I found a shattered C5 with a metric ass ton of sites, and I have nothing to run these sites with.
Damn.
Yeah, how does the stream look?
Hold on, let me find it here.
Just linked in general.
It looks good, but if I'm watching it and then listening on Discord, you guys talk and then talk and then I talk and then talk. It's weird.
You can actually hear Discord on the stream?
Yeah, I can hear you talking, Ducky talking, and then Ducky was like, "Hey, Chris, I found this," and I was like, "Oh, cool." And then, like 2 minutes later, it repeats itself and goes over again. It's really crazy. I had to close it. But yeah, you can hear Discord talking on it.
Oh, that's kind of shitty. I don't know how to. I might stop the stream and put it up with OBS. Just so it's a little better, but.
It looks pretty good, though, honestly. Chris, it makes me really sad that I don't have nothing to run these sites with.
You don't have anything to run them with?
It's C5. I'd need at least a Chronos.
Oh, wow, yeah.
And this is a shield hole.
Yeah, but there's all kind of good loot in there.
Oh, God, billions and billions of ISK in here, dude.
Damn.
And I have nothing to run it with.
It certainly feels like they should be making at least some level of progress in terms of winning the air superiority battle.
And by the way, Q-U is the one we agreed to. You dropped our deck.
Yeah, no, we had our deck approved too. I told Diplos to get to it, and I was told it was green.
Hey, I'm talking to Corpse Diplo right now. They're like, nope.
Whatever.
You know how it goes. I mean, you know how we think. You were us, you know.
Not really, but
Oh, are you saying you weren't on the outside even when you're in?
well, no, I'm saying that when I was on the inside, I made just as many calls as on the outside. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
That's like Steve Perry saying he was never part of Journey.
Oh no, I made the old CFC partly what it was. I'm not gonna downplay that. But do you disagree?
Dude, you were gone as much as you were around, though. I mean, I get it. Real life takes precedence always. Like, I agree with that. But, I mean, you definitely had a big part to play, but made us?
Yeah.
Well, it's a different beast now than it was then. It seemed more militaristic when Billy was around. It seems more economic now.
This fight is, a demonstration perhaps of Goon Swarm and the Imperium back to its aggressive form, right? They've had a long period of, economic build-up and recovery from being evicted to the north, and this, to me, is like the first sign of a return to form of the old CFC Imperium, whatever we want to call it.
Well, we have a lot of cobwebs. To be very clear, like we used to do multi-fleets really, really well back in the day. Overwatch and command and control was really, really good, but we were pretty rusty. So this is kind of the first, series of multi-fleet coordination that we've had to do in a long time. So we got to shake the cobwebs off.
Yeah, just to be clear here, I'm not saying I was the only person involved in that, but the old three legs of the chair, myself, Mr. V, and Lazarus, that was the team that basically carried the old CFC through basically all of the real hurdles it incurred from 2010 to 2015.
Oh, I'd agree. You were third best for sure.
Oh, thanks.
So rude.
That was definitely, in my outside perspective, that period was probably the pinnacle, wasn't it? I think, but we're definitely seeing a return to form. I think, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see. This is an interesting battle for sure, and I'm really I believe it's probably Asher that made the call for this, to really hard. Well,
yeah,
this is a soft commit, not a hard commit, but it's a pretty strong play. I was actually under the impression that you guys weren't going to be able to get those fighters up, but the Jackdaws coming down to do their repair, to pause the repair until the fighters could get up, worked well. So kudos for that. It seems like for the moment it's a winning battle for the Imperium, but it's really hard to say because I'm not quite exactly sure how things are going to work out in this fight.
I'm hearing that they're having trouble launching fighters, so maybe the PDS took out some of the superiority fighters. Perhaps they're having trouble, the Northern Forces having trouble launching replacements. I'm hearing from a few guys that are in Supers that are saying they can't launch their fighters at the moment.
All right.
I mean, there's for those that haven't really experienced it before, let me try to break down the mechanics of this fight. There's pretty much only two ways this fight would have went. Either kind of long-range Titans with reps that were just out of range, or catapults, which is where you send these fighters across the field. That was probably the only two ways this fight shook out, unless somebody did something crazy, like when they did the 4-Nix sign-out. If more people had taken that sign-out, this could have been a bloodbath. Fortunately for us, that didn't occur. But because of the way the Eve mechanics works, especially at this scale, the trebuchet type catapult attack was probably the most effective, which is what you're seeing here.
Can you describe what that is, the trebuchet catapult attack?
So what you do is you anchor some strong point around the target you're going to attack. So in our case, we have a couple Fortizars or whatever that we park ourselves on. So we come in, we sign into the system, we park on our hard point. So they don't want to take the fight on our hard point, and we don't want to take the fight on their hard point, which is the keep you're seeing on the screen. So what you do is you basically each sit on your little hard point and you shell each other. That's essentially what's happening. These fighters fly across the field and take a really long time, fly like 1,100 kilometers or whatever, and then they start shooting each other. So they're drones. Think of them as kind of like cheap, replaceable items that you can just kind of deploy across the field and let them do their thing, and you're not really risking your big ship. To risk your big ship, one of the two sides would have to warp on top of each other. which is very unlikely to happen because then you would see many trillions die. And neither wants to be the one that initiates the fight on the other guy's hard point, because then you're at a disadvantage.
Right. All right. We'll be joined soon by Elise Randolph, who will join us with Billy and talk about what the events are on the ground as we see them. I believe the Keepstar is under 80%, about 73%, I think was the last I heard. Is that right?
Hello again.
Oh, boat's back. And the Keepstar is still paused. I think it's been paused this entire time, so we're still above the 8-minute mark, and that is the really important countdown to invulnerability. It is paused because it is taking damage. When it stops taking damage, it'll continue to tick down to 0. If it hits 0, that structure becomes invulnerable, and the battle is over for the most part.
Damage is increased again, by the way. So it was at 6 minutes per percent. It's down to 3, maybe even less per percent.
Can you explain what that means? I don't understand it
now. So you take a timer and you count like how long it takes to go from 80 to 79 as it counts down, and it was in the upper 80s. It was like 6 minutes plus per percent. But as more damage gets closer to damage cap, it's dropped down to 3 minutes. It's actually getting lower. The last 3% has been under 3 minutes.
What's the current percentage out there, Boat?
I think it's under 70 now, or just at 70.
Okay, so definitely, and time dilation, I assume, is still at 10%?
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, so...
But the fighter bombers are finally getting there, I think.
Yeah, it's not like the most widely understood fact how tie-dye works past 10%, but once you hit that 10% cap, tie-dye actually kind of goes into another level of tie-dye where it may go to actually in theory like 1%, which is often would effectively be 99%, but CCP never actually says, you know, you're at 99% tie-dye versus, you know, 90. So if what Boat is saying is true, then the likelihood is that tie-dye is probably pushing back from like 99.6% to like 94% or something like that.
No, the tie-dye hasn't really changed. It's the fighter bombers from the super carriers are finally arriving.
Yeah, they've been.
Most of them aren't there yet.
Like most of our guys are reporting, theirs haven't got there yet. So
yeah,
they're just starting to get there.
Oh yeah, the fighter bombers, like especially long-range fighter bombers, take a very long time to hit.
Yeah, so only like a few have actually made it. Like, so
yeah,
when they all get there, it's going to be nasty.
It's between like 1,000 and 1,200 kilometers for these things to fly in tie-dye. Like it's going to take like an hour and a half for someone to get there.
When they do get there, we expect more damage to be applied, so the Keepstar will fall even faster. But what can the NC or the Northern forces do to defend against that happening?
I mean, they're trying to kill fighters, but when they turn that PDS on, they kill their own fighters.
Yeah, so they had a couple of tactics they were trying to use. They were trying to use Scorpions to jam our fighters, right, to where our fighters couldn't hurt their Keepstar. And then they were trying to actually kill them with Space Superiority Fighters, which is a different type of fighter that is basically designed to kill other fighters. So we're having to use bombers to target the structure, and they were able to use Space Superiority Fighters. So it's a good plan, but in this kind of tie-dye, it doesn't work very well.
Interesting. Learning experience all around. You don't really get to practice at this scale, do you?
Well, that's why, you know, you got to just kind of do these, you know, multi-series campaigns and try to learn a few things. But yeah, like this is a learning experience for us, it's a learning experience for them. Just like the tactic they tried to use on the other timer where they were going to BFG all their carriers. If that would have worked, it would have been amazing. And everyone would have been like, wow, that was a great tactic. But, you know, when it didn't work, now we're here.
We have a question why the Titans are not doomsdaying things.
They're not in range.
They could try, but they'll zap all the cap of everything around them, and that's really dangerous right now.
Yeah, like nothing good is in range of the Titan. Like our Titans don't have anything in range of them, and their Titans don't have anything in range of them. Like there's nothing for them shooting. If they want to try to DD fighters, like BFG them or lance them or something, they'll just end up hitting either their own keep, other stuff. You know, it's just not good.
Yeah, so effectively the Titans are at 1,000 kilometers from any target they can doomsday. So the only way the Titans can effectively utilize their targeted doomsdays is to warp within range of the enemy Fortizar and start popping off doomsdays against them.
Another thing, if they want to lance, they would risk with the tie-dye as bad as it is. Their fleet will drift in the range of the lance and wipe out their whole fleet. Whereas, like, our fleets are really, really spread out. Theirs are all big balls, and if they get hit by 2 or 3 lances, they're done. So it's just too risky with the lag. You don't know how long the DD is going to take to cycle or go off. Like, it's crazy.
All right, Boat, I think we're being a bit too complicated for some of the fans. There's a lot of new people.
Sorry.
Too. It's all right.
So to clear it up, the Lance is like a big, imagine like a big laser beam going straight out and go 300 up to 300k, I think, or 250. And if the Lance hits, it does damage over time, over a period of 15 seconds, right? So it's going to hit and hit and hit and hit. The problem is with it so laggy, it might take 10 or 15 minutes for it to actually activate. And if it does, and you're aiming at a specific point, and the things you're targeting move, you're gonna miss. So Lances are just too unpredictable right now to use. That's why they're not using them.
The Lance, like, if you ever watched Babylon 5, many years ago, I'm dating myself a little bit here. The Lance is very similar to kind of the laser weapons that would chop ships in half. I mean, that's like the Lance. The BFG is, when we refer to that, it's basically a big shotgun, has very low range, but it'll kill everything kind of in a cone in front of it. So they're very, very powerful, but they're very short range.
Philly?
What?
We've cut you off.
I don't know.
You were talking.
That's a mostly accurate description of the Doomsdays. You know, the Lance is a big laser that just, you know, pours damage in a singular angle for 15 seconds of real time. And,
right, but
the, you know, Aerith's description of the bosun is pretty accurate.
No. It's not that. I called you in to go back to the original question of what the North can do to slow down the arrival of those bombers that will increase the damage to the Keepstar.
They got to go harder, basically. If you look at the fight currently, you can see at the top end of the Keepstar, or the top right, etc., you've got well over 60 space superiority fighters up in that area, tangoing with maybe 5 enemy fighters. You know, they're probably misallocating their fighters there. It's really hard to tell what the space superiority battle is looking like south of the Keepstar towards the angle of approach of the heavy long-range bombers. But definitely, if you look at the screen that we're seeing right now, it looks like, for the most part, the advancing fighters are advancing, I don't want to say unopposed, because there's a significant amount of fighters on the grid from what I can see, but they are advancing with purpose, and, you know, they're taking losses, but it seems like they're marching towards a successful kill, I guess you could say. Or, you know, it looks like enough of them are making it through that they're going to continue to achieve their goal for the foreseeable future here.
And there's lots of replacements. Like, we had spent a significant amount of time seeding the area with, you know, subcapitals and replacement fighters and things of that nature. And so there's definitely replacements. However, in this much tie-dye, we probably wouldn't be able to use them.
All right.
In terms of in-system replacements, yeah, you're correct. It's extremely difficult once you get in these kind of battles to, you know, once your fighter bays are exhausted, to dock back up, restock, and get back out there. If you're jumping out and then jumping back in, that can sometimes be effective, but it's tricky, for sure.
Yeah, we have a little of both, but you got to figure, if you run out and you got to dock or go get more, you're probably looking at at least an hour to kind of dock and get back out, and then another hour for them to get there. So you're pretty much combat ineffective if they die.
Yeah.
So just a couple quick shout outs, guys and gals. The Mackage, Gotham, GK, Solus, Voldrek, and Dantian, thank you so much for the Twitch Prime and standard subs. And then Jane for the 100 bits. Thank you, Cited. Thank you all so much.
Okay, let me bring everybody back into focus. If you've been joining us, people want to know who the good guys, bad guys are. It's up to you. I'll just tell you who's on the field. We are looking at live coverage of 9TAC4 RP2, which is a system in Cloud Ring. It is a final timer, which means it'll be destroyed, of a Keepstar, which is the largest kind of base station that EVE has to offer. It belongs to Horde, which is a group that is part of the Northern Forces, and they are in orange here. They are defending with the help of Northern Coalition and Darkness and Mercenary Coalition and Pandemic Legion, and those are the Northern Forces. Attacking it are the Blue Forces, that is the Imperium, and that is Goon Swarm, Bastion, TNT, and you also have Initiative and Snuff that's on there. So we've assembled people who know about both sides, their motivations, empire building for Aerith, and many other things, FCing for Billy, and I'll introduce you to them in just a second. They are talking us through the events. We're talking about the history of the event, the context of it, the results, the future, but also what is actually happening tactically, so you can try to understand what we're looking at. And I want to say, if you're looking at Eve, it is very slow because everything is moving in slow motion because the servers are taking a while to calculate what's happening. But for people who are familiar with the game, they're looking at this and seeing it completely differently. They're looking at strategy and events, even though they're moving in slow motion. So we'll try to describe that for you guys.
At this point, there's not a ton of strategy involved in what's going on. Once things slow down to this level, you're able to make very complex decisions at very how do I put this? You can take your time. You can think over your decisions. You can reach the obvious conclusion. You're not forced to make any real snap decisions, and obviously. This is a slow battle, to say the least. With that being said, this Keepstar seems to be below 70% now, Boat, if that's correct. Or is Boat even still
Boat
here?
left.
Yeah.
Do we have any? What is that fleet that just repositioned down towards the bottom middle of the screen there?
It's one of the
they've been pushing on
battleships.
They've been pushing on their left side for like an hour or so now. And this is the time I've actually seen them warp somewhere. I'm really curious what they're doing down there.
Looks like battleships. I think that's NC Macarials. Could be wrong though.
No, I'm pretty sure it is the. I'm pretty sure it is the NC Macarials.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that local continues to drop, and we're just dropping below 3,800, or dropping around 3,800 now. If that trend continues, it should be noted that while we're seeing a significant amount of fighters in space, that doesn't necessarily mean they're active, and that the fighters of disconnected pilots will, for the most part, become inactive. So if before the battle started, we were looking at a battle where I believe the North had a numerical advantage by 20 or 30%. So as the numbers drop, that could become more and more play if the disconnects follow an even trajectory.
We're hearing that the the arrival of the orange there is a mock battleship fight, and that is Macarials versus Macarials. Macarials have a characteristic of being very fast battleships with a very hard barrage, so they can do a lot of damage, and they're preferred for quick attacks, and so they are lancing each other right now, or basically blowing each other up.
Hey, what's more Eve than Mac on Mac?
Well, and that also brings us to another topic of how Alpha clones were able to fly, or are able to fly them now. So that kind of changes how some of the fleets are now, because you don't have to be subscribed now to get into Macarial. Now, granted, they're a little less powerful, but they're still available now.
Okay, Keepstar has dipped to 68% as it continues to drop from damage. Once it gets to 0, it explodes, and victory goes to the Imperium, the blue. If they can manage to keep that timer locked by applying damage in a consistent way, they can keep it from reaching safety of invulnerability. And that timer is only 8 minutes, but it hasn't moved in quite a while. So it looks like momentum has swung towards the Imperium.
Yeah, I would definitely say that at the moment it kind of feels, from the view that we're watching, that they definitely have the advantage. It's really hard to read if that's how it's actually playing it on the battlefield, just because we're working with a single limited kind of angle of viewing, and we're trying to make very complex observations from just that limited information.
I got all our command channels. I'm reading them.
And what are your command channels saying that we information-wise that we don't have?
Basically, that a lot of our DPS isn't there yet. Some of their jamming starting to kick in. Their Scorpions, I guess, are starting to be a little bit effective, but a great deal of our DPS still isn't there. Like, a lot of our guys report that they haven't launched yet.
Yeah, no, that makes absolute sense. It is interesting to note that, like, going over the first Z-Kill review of the fight, it shows 36 battleships lost, 124 light fighters, or 124 wings, which is 9 fighters apiece of light fighters have died, and certainly the losses on the other side are pretty minimal, but that's very much to be expected. With that being said, it's still really hard to kind of tell just how the battle is going to swing once those heavy fighters get there. If it's going to swing harder, if those multiple Scorpion fleets from Pandemic Horde are going to be able to push off a lot of that heavy fighter DPS, as each Scorpion represents the ability to permanently jam out multiple heavy fighters. So I don't know if the battle is definitely sealed in any way, because I definitely don't feel that it is. But there's definitely a lot to be said for how this is going to proceed and go on.
Oh, it definitely decided. I think what people need to understand in these really large fights where you're stressing the server and lots of things can go wrong, the node could crash right now. And if the node crashes right now, this fight's over for the night. Like, everyone will go home. So a lot of times what you're trying to do is just not make a large mistake or get yourself in a weird position and hope the server stays up. Like, because this is something you can't see in another game. Like, that's what makes Eve so good is, yeah, when you're looking at the screen here, it might look really, really boring, but no other game could even render this. So that's why we play Eve.
Right, so let me reintroduce the panel that we have going right now. We have Aerith, who is CSM member and one of the leaders of the Imperium. And we also have, one second here, working lots of buttons, have to move around. Okay, for Bro Hamo, he is a Providence FC. We have Dirk McGurk, who's co-hosting this with me and Life Shifter. We are bringing it to you live on INN. Dirk and I, and also Thel there, work for the INN, but also the Talking in Stations podcast, so you can get more coverage on your everyday Eve news through that as well. We have Harvey Skywalker, who is the former owner of this area when he was the leader of the culture, but he is now in PL. We have Never Convicted, who's a streamer here at INN, and also former player for the Rooks and Kings. We have Naiden. He is in Snuff, but he is also the editor-in-chief for Crossing Zebras. We have Thel Ancora from NC, and we have Villy from Test, a former Goonswarm member, but now leads Test.
No, I don't know if Aerith mentioned this while I was away trying to log in and still trying to log in. The summit. Did you happen to mention anything related to that? Related to, I don't know, what this might be like with a GTFO device in action or something?
Yeah, I don't know what I can say. Like, I will say that it was discussed, but that's probably all I can say.
What I mean, can you say what the general vibe was from the CSM to them prior to the devlog going out?
I don't think I can say. I will say a lot of the changes that you're seeing now, for not really to get that module out, but the other good changes you're seeing in Eve, a lot of these were discussed and brought up by the CSM or was direct feedback from the CSM. So I do think it's going in a positive direction. I personally, I think it's a little strong in null. Probably. Do I think it's warranted in like HiSec? Yeah, because HiSec has nothing. They don't have any AoE or anything in HiSec. So I think HiSec definitely needs something. But it probably would be really overpowered in null where, hey, we scram, the FC or we GTFO just like the anchor and the whole fleet goes away, or we use it to headshot people by making his fleet go away, and that kind of thing. It probably would be overpowered because once you send a guy off the grid in a fight like this, he's not coming back for a really long time.
Yep.
So with the Keepstar slowly bleeding structure and everything, there must be like with the Northern Forcers, there must be at least some point when it hits like 10% or even 5% where the North either goes all out or either just gives up. Like, what do you guys think about that?
They would be extracting at about 30 to 40%. Any super capital next to the keep, they would need to start extracting.
We have a question to tell us about the orange blob, what that mainly is.
So the orange blob there is generally the center of force for the Pandemic family forces. What you've got in that giant orange blob, and it's really hard to explain just how big that blob actually is in terms of Eve terms. It's full of, I assume, the entirety of whatever NC Dot has for Titans, or NC Dot Pandemic family has for Titans, super carriers, fax are all sitting in the center of that. basically creating kind of a point of incredibly strong mass where they're projecting all of their force out from. My guess is if there's 3,700 in local, that would represent well over 1,500 pilots just in that kind of central blob there, from which they're projecting the majority of their carriers, their Titans, etc.
Someone asked earlier if we were seeing most of the fight or if there was stuff that was off screen, and the majority of the fight is what you're seeing. It just doesn't look like 5,000 people, but it is. It's called the grid. That's the battle grid that people are fighting on, and that is what you're seeing.
And there's also 2 large blue feats that are currently not visible at all, just because of the camera angle. And I apologize, folks, ahead of time, as we've mentioned. We're afraid to move the camera right now due to the crashes that have been happening today, because it's been taking people on upwards to an hour to get back in. And at this point, if we were to change the camera angle and we were to crash, it would take on upwards to close to an hour to get back, and I don't know if that would be anything good for the viewership. So we're trying to still maintain at least a view, so we don't kill all of our view of the battle.
Yeah, I'm literally going over 2 hours and I'm still not able to get on.
Yeah, we have people that have been undocking in system for 90 minutes still.
I managed to get logged in after about 2 hours. I warped in and I just sat there and couldn't do anything, and then I crashed again.
Right. So the numbers dropping aren't a lack of interest or even people getting killed and removed. They're the server having trouble basically keeping up with the amount of players that want to get in on this fight. It did get up to about 6,000, maybe even over a little over 6,000 people. That puts it at a record-breaking size for a fight in EVE Online. This is the biggest fight that we've ever seen in EVE Online.
This is just one of those ones where it's like, you know what, you planned on being here until downtime. If you got home earlier than that later, then so be it. But whether I'm logging in or whether I'm actually in there and modules are not responding, it's it's sort of the same time.
Billy, how do the time zones affect this kind of a fight?
Well, generally, when you have this kind of fight, you're looking to start it as early as you can into whatever your prime time is. And when I say prime time, generally what I mean is the time at which your membership is most strong. So within EVE Online, you're talking a global game. You have people from Asia, you have people from Russia, Europe, United States, Australia. All of these people operate in different time zones all around the world. So the majority of the Pandemic Family alliances and the coalition is built around a mix of Euro, Australian, US time zone. They have a pretty strong player base in all 3 areas. The Imperium forces are also pretty much a multi-time zone entity. I would say that they maybe have a stronger US time zone, not by a ton, but definitely I would think traditionally they were one of the strongest US time zone entities in the game. And if, I've been out of Imperium for a while, but my assumption is that they would have, at the very least, a slight advantage working towards US time zone. That being said, in the situation we're looking at, nobody's going to sleep if your Titan or supercarrier is logged in right now in the middle of this fight. If you're in here and you're aggressed, you're very much playing till downtime, which is the time at roughly, 7 in the morning Eastern, something like that, at which the server resets daily. So there's very likely the possibility that we could be in for that kind of a situation here if the Keepstar dies and then a secondary battle begins on top of the central Pandemic Family force with Imperium bringing in a hard committal. Although, will that happen? I don't know. But if the Keepstar goes down, the Pandemic Family forces will have lost their high ground in this grid, and it will definitely open them up to a variety of different tactical situations. And I don't know how necessarily it'll play out, but it will definitely change the dynamics of the battle drastically.
Well, explain that a little bit. Why are they safer with the Keepstar on grid?
Well, obviously the giant one is that you can dock and log off, and you will actually disappear if you can dock before you hit the point of no return. So if you're still aggressive when the Keepstar dies, you'll just get spit out, and which is effectively a death sentence. So if this Keepstar is going to die, they will lose the advantage to effectively escape. They will lose the Keepstar's Doomsday, weapon for enhanced defense, they will lose the advantage of tether mechanics, which allow you to kind of place things a little more perfectly, grant you a slight amount of invulnerability while moving around near it. And they will lose the advantage of the Keepstar's point defense system should they need to utilize that. At this point, it's extremely hard to say what would happen if the Keepstar were to die with this size of a fleet on top of it. It would imply that Imperium forces had a tactical control of the battlefield, in which case they would have the opportunity to make some really interesting moves, but they may be, I don't want to say exhausted because that's not exactly the right word, but they might be running low on things like fighters and people just get tired. This is going to be an 8 or 9 hour battle, and they may take their victory at that point and just call it a victory, because it obviously will be. But on the other hand, they might be in a situation where they feel the bloodlust and they feel energized and ready to take down someone who has traditionally been their hardline enemy. So it's definitely hard to say how it's going to play out.
I mean, you could have scenarios where we bubble the whole grid. We drop another structure of our own. Like, it gets really dangerous for the defenders. So you want to extract before you get into that situation.
Yeah, exactly. If you wait too long, if you wait till the structure is at 10%, then you create a situation where you are effectively trapped here, and you only have so long to extract before things get extremely dangerous, because extraction is generally the most difficult part of properly utilizing capital and super capital fleets in Eve. Trying to get all your guys out as safely as you can is tricky, and when you have so many assets on field, it only takes one misclick, one disconnect, one somebody not paying attention, or one interdictor bubble preventing a fleet warp or a sinoserial jump away, before you have losses that are many times more valuable than the Keepstar itself.
Yeah, imagine if you're like random super capital pilot, you're on the keep right now, and you've disconnected and you e-warp. When you log back in and you re-warp, you're going to land in bubbles and just die a horrible death. So you don't want to get yourself in that scenario. So while you're still connected, you're going to want to either sino out, warp off, do whatever.
All right. Again, we have the south in blue attacking a Keepstar. The north in orange is defending it. And it looks like the Keepstar is getting damaged. It's down to under, I believe, 70%-ish.
We have reports of 65% now from Twitch chat.
Oh, you read chat? Ugh.
65%, so it is going down. There are bombers that are either striking now or about to strike. Those bombers will make that go down even faster. The north on their side is trying to destroy the damage-making capability of the south as quickly as possible to save the structure. And yes, we have it confirmed at 65%. It is down to 65%.
Yeah, I generally try to avoid reading Twitch chat sometimes. You can only be called a shitler so many times, but there's definitely a lot of useful updates coming out of Twitch chat, and they're good people, even if they spam the wrong emotes at times.
Agree.
Yeah, there's the good people in chat outweigh the bad. And
yes, many times over, exactly.
Yeah. But those of you looking at this and wondering what's going on, the gray area that you're seeing is the Keepstar. It is a giant space station, the largest that you can build. It is owned by the north of the orange there, and it is being attacked. And this is the largest battle Eve has seen. It's gone on now for hours. It probably will go on for many more hours. And we still don't know which way it's going to go. It's up in the air, but momentum seems to be swinging towards the blues, and that would be the Imperium. And if that happens, there may be a combination of things that make this fight go to the next level, which is the Titans that are on grid, which are the biggest ships that you can have in Eve, for the north, will become a little more vulnerable without a space station to dock in.
A little more vulnerable is kind of an understatement, to be fair.
A lot more vulnerable?
As vulnerable as you can be, sitting around, however many of your brethren, I guess you could say.
Well, there's almost no scenario where you can extract clean at that point. Like, you're gonna lose some just because there's always a guy that disconnected, doesn't follow orders, is an idiot, didn't have enough topes, whatever. So you're always gonna lose a few in that scenario. So you want to extract soon.
So probably that's the point right there, that you want to extract soon. So it won't get to 0 before NC pretty much, or the Northern forces throw in the towel and say, we're not going to save this, let's get out. Well,
to be fair, you know, we're saying, you know, the Northern Coalition forces are going to throw in the towel or get out or whatever. But there are other options here. There is the hard engage mode. You know, NC can pull the trigger right now and warp down to the Goon Fort Azar and start blasting away at the carriers with their Titans. And are they going to take that route? I don't think they are, but that is absolutely a possibility. And while initially I had thought that holding their Titans back in a system not the engagement system, I think that's actually going to work in advantage for the Imperium forces here, because it means that none of their Titan pilots are disconnected or affected by any of the key problems that are probably affecting the Pandemic family Titan fleet right now. So in theory, on a jump in, they would be a force that could make would effectively overpower the Pandemic forces. Will that happen? I don't know. It's impossible to predict how tie-dye and lag and the mechanics of that server response are going to work. But there is definitely the go nuclear option available to NC Dot here, or Pandemic family, that definitely a card that hasn't been played yet.
Yeah, but then you worry about counter moves, right? So there's always counterplay, and even, for example, let's say that scenario happened. Maybe we dread bomb them. Maybe we pick up a few Titans. Maybe we sino right into the middle of their Titan fleet and starburst them all into all directions and then start DDing. Like, and they've used their DD. So there's a lot of counterplay there that makes that a stupidly high risk move that is very unlikely to occur, because they have to be willing to take trillions in losses no matter what at that point.
Yeah, they absolutely do. But then again, you have to realize that dread bombs are absolutely ineffective against Titans, even in this scenario.
They DD'd all our shit, maybe.
No, like, let's be honest here. If you drop a dread bomb in the, you know, on Titans, we both know what happens. You know, the Titans lose some facts and they kill all your dreads. The danger for NCPL forces would be that, you know, they warp their Titans in. You drop your Titans either directly on them or at short or medium range off them and just go to town on them. And then we have the greatest battle in the history of online games, if that is you know, kind of the outcome. That is why people are here watching, right?
Yeah, they're LR fit too, so they would get screwed by SR Titans, you know.
Honestly, the difference in gun ranges is such a minor thing at this scale. The Doomsdays are going to be so much more exponentially important. I think you would find that even, you know, with 200 Titans coming in with short range, you know, the Titan, you know, gun DPS is, you know, mostly irrelevant in the face of facts. It's much more about the targeted Doomsdays that would really affect the field.
That's the problem. If they come in and they DD all their first wave into our carriers, let's just say, if that's how you're saying they're going to kill our carriers, they're all on timers at that point, or at least a lot of them are on timers. And then we're coming in with no timers. Like, that's bad. That's kind of what happened to BTEC-R.
Kind of, yeah. It would give you guys an advantage to some degree, for sure. But then you guys have to load in front of them. You know, that is something you never want to do with a Supercat fleet, is load or jump into an enemy fleet unloaded, right? Because if you have to load grid in front of them and you don't load and your hardeners don't turn on, you insta die.
Oh,
right?
I don't disagree at all. Like, black screen would be the number one thing we would fear, is that we sit there for 30 minutes in black screen and you load and you're in a pod.
Yeah, that's you know, that's one of the main reasons that Head GP right before BR Tech never happened, right? Because we had dreads, a large percentage of our dreads that never loaded grid and just were dying. So we knew we couldn't jump in the Titans and Supers. And I think the mechanics of the game and the structural strength of the servers is a lot higher now. But it's one of those factors you absolutely have to consider, right? And I don't know how you... it would be tricky.
Yeah, they got to worry about the bumps and we got to worry about the black screen. I don't think either of us want to take that risk.
Right. Okay. So those are super advanced concepts. And I do want to point out another advanced concept that Billy brought up is very interesting. It's almost like keeping your powder dry in a battle like this. If you're not in this system, you're not subject to the slowness of the system and the disconnects and all the stuff that goes with it. Because if you disconnect in this zone, you may be out for an hour. So by having the heavy artillery of the Titans still in the staging system, not in this system, but a staging system where they can jump from and directly into combat, they are safe from that sort of stuff. And that is really kind of next level thinking when you're in a fight like this.
Yeah, we have 300 Titans just basically sitting out there waiting for something to occur. It is not likely that something is going to occur that we would use those Titans, but you never know.
How much is, do some napkin math, 300 Titans, how much is that worth in real money?
Oh, God, are we going to do those comparisons?
Yes, because there's a lot of people who can't really understand what that means. They need something to
easily. How many Titans? Sorry.
About 300. That's us. I don't know. I think you guys.
I don't know. Somewhere in the range of $300,000 to $600,000, easily.
Yeah, versus
depending how you value the Titans. What conversion method you're giving.
Yeah. We have confirmed there are 300 Titans on the Imperium side waiting to get in. The Northern Coalition has committed some Titans. I'm not sure that's all of them.
What do you mean committed? Do you mean they've loaded onto the Keepstar?
Yeah, there's some on the Keepstar.
Well, that's not really committing so much as it is just gotten them to load grid, I guess you could say.
I guess that's gotten them into the battle.
They're a step further than the Imperium ones. Let's give them that much.
Yeah, but that also gives them some advantages, right? Because the Imperium ones are not being affected by any of the in-system issues. So as much as I thought that wasn't necessarily the smartest move at the start of this fight, it seems to be working out for them. The question is, of course, as me and Aerith were just discussing, how successful would they be loading system if they tried to jump in blind, right? So
well, I think that thing we're not also pointing out, we probably should point out to the other viewers, is the other counterplay is when they go to extract, maybe you catch a few in a mid and you drop, or you catch a few that just jump to some random beacon or something. Like, there's always idiots when you have this many people going on. And so our Titans are available to kill idiots, right?
For an entirely
that's
crazy
thing, if you can catch them.
Not really. I mean, in terms of jump ranges, your Titans would have to mid to an alternate system to, if the Keepstar is the center, you guys are southward of it and they're northward of it. So you're not going to be in direct jump range of their mid Titans.
Where are the Imperium 300 Titans at the moment? Are they in J5 still?
They would have to be in Bravo Delta, I assume, or somewhere nearby, or one of the Cloud Ring mids, maybe.
Does this stream not had eyes on them before?
I've been told about them, but I never bothered to ask where it were.
All right,
presumably they are in range.
One of the other streams was watching them.
So
yeah, I thought I saw a stream with them on there. But I don't want to say it. But if y'all don't know, I don't want to say it. Then.
No,
quick,
yeah, Varn had all
quick
the
recap.
Systems.
Oh, sorry, Live Shifter. Quick recap of what's going on. If you're just joining us, this is live coverage of the largest battle that Eve has seen, and this is happening in Cloud Ring. The system is 9TAC4 RP2. It is a final timer for a Keepstar belonging to Horde, which is in orange there. Those are the northern forces that are defending that Keepstar from being destroyed. Attacking it are the blue forces that you're seeing there, and that's the Imperium that have come up from the southern regions of Delve and Aquarius, all through Fountain up to this area for this fight.
So if I'm reading this right, or looking at the screen in the correct way, I guess you could say, the blob of blue on the left is just a sentry ball, correct? It's from when the Macarials came in initially to get that initial pause to give the fighters time to get up there.
Come on, let's risk moving the camera. Like, come on, just once.
If we lose it, we lose 9,000 people basically. So,
yeah, God, that's bad for Eve.
Not gonna do it.
Okay, so there's if you look about middle left, about halfway between the Keepstar and the edge of the screen, there's a blob of blue little X's there, right? Which are, my guess, abandoned sentry drones. So for the most part, those are irrelevant to what you're seeing on the field.
I moved the text line at the bottom so you guys can actually see how much blue is actually bordered on the bottom of the screen currently.
What I really would like right now is if we get like a Coach Ditka like playboard or something, so I can like circle things on screen. That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
Matt Annie had it. Why can't we?
Yeah.
It might be in the future. In the future,
yeah. That being said, when I'm looking at it, it feels like I'm looking at less and less blue fighters. I don't know if that's actually accurate. Maybe it's the more likely reality is that they're just spreading out around the Keepstar more.
Well, we have heard that the fighter bombers that were supposed to come in and deliver a lot of damage seem to be malfunctioning. That each supercarrier only has one tube of bombers working at a time.
Jesus.
I haven't seen that report, but maybe I'm not just seeing it.
Yeah.
Like Matani is finally applying damage as of like 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago.
Is he in this fight?
Yeah, he's actually on the field.
All right, so just so if people don't know, Matani is the leader of the Imperium and their figurehead.
He's in a super too, right?
He's gonna be so mad when I get him headshot.
All right, so we're under 65% damage to that structure. It is going down. Before it gets to 0 and blows up, the NC will, if that happens, decide at a certain point that they need to abandon the structure because they'll need to extract, or they will stay on the field and try to dominate what's left.
Yeah, there's definitely multiple outcomes for what could happen here.
It still seems like it's up in the air, right? Like there's definitely it's a 50-50 with a little bit of momentum towards Imperium, but not that much.
Sure, I mean anything can happen now. I think the only thing that I would be super butt blasted about is if the server died.
That would certainly be
I don't think anybody wants that.
But traditionally in battles like this, when CCPs had the foreknowledge about what's to come, they've been able to I can't remember what battle we had many years ago, but CCP knew it was a major battle, and they basically put in some code or something where it says the server cannot die; it will go on no matter what. Right? The only time
we've been talking to them all day about reinforcing, and they have an ops guy. I think CCPs even has like an ops guy like watching the server right now.
Oh, I'm sure they've got some tech dude in. Like this is their business, right? So, and there's more data being created and more points of information to gather today than probably historically we've ever had in EVE.
Yeah, earlier we had CCP on through the CCP Falcon, and he was giving us a play-by-play of what the server was going through as we were talking, and it did. The CPUs hit 100%. They were peaked. Their 17 gigs of RAM were overcome. They had to switch to 64 gigs of RAM to loosen it up, and yeah, then he had to leave, and we expect he had to put out a fire of some sort with a fire extinguisher, but those servers are working overtime to accommodate this kind of a fight. And we did see this go up to record numbers, just over 6,000 people in local at the same time, with reserves in both staging systems.
Yeah, so at the moment, like if you're reading the Zkill report, which is definitely not the most accurate of reports, but it's the only report the majority of us can kind of read right now. You're looking at roughly 60 wings of fighters lost on PanFam side, with 128 wings of light fighters on the Imperium side, and 16 wings of heavy fighters. So that's a pretty substantial number in normal scenarios, but it's definitely not, I guess you would say, as high as you would hope in this kind of a situation. If you're, I've seen many just smaller scale battles where those numbers would be in the high 300 or 400s for wings of carriers lost. So I don't know if that's a sign of things to come, but we will definitely see as time continues to move forward here.
Yeah, that's a really low loss number compared to. There's so many things on the grid that are meant to kill fighters that's a really low number, and I think we just have to chalk it up to tie-dye.
Yeah, a time dilation is definitely going to be one of the big danger points here. In terms of just introducing unpredictable elements that you can't really factor into your evaluation. With that being said, it should be noted that a large percentage of the space superiority fighters will have probably finally hit some of those heavy fighters that are on their way up, and when that happens, those losses should increase, but it could, there's so many light fighters on this thing. I don't think even just the heavy fighters on their own are any more important than anything else.
Yeah, no, it's really late in Iceland, and I think in the UK as well. But Falcon, when he was on earlier, was saying that a lot of CCP employees will stick around and watch these kinds of fights on TVs. They have it on TVs everywhere. It's kind of like you know, a giant public event in the news that's happening for them.
I'm surprised Falcon's not still here. Like, he's kind of an insomniac. He's up a lot at night.
Yeah, we're trying to get in touch with him to maybe bring him back, see if he can give us an update on what the servers look like.
Unless we get, I mean, CCP Guard's in channel also. I don't know if CCP Guard, if you want to, if you're listening to us, if you want to jump in and talk to us a little bit about what's going on in CCP.
Oh, finally an excuse to read chat.
We're also expecting Lise Randolph to come in just a few minutes, and we'll get to more coverage of the tactic. This Billy is totally helping us out by showing us how the big thinking in these kinds of fights actually happens. Very few people can speak on that with authority. He's one of them. So we're glad to have him here. And
he was my favorite voice FC.
You know who we have to get on Talking Stations this Sunday, maybe? The guy who's working night duty tonight in the UK server farm.
The guy holding the fire extinguisher. Okay.
Yeah, there's definitely I don't know, it's really hard to like, there's a group of what I seem to be, I assume they're Macarials at the top left of the Keepstar. If you look at the left wing of the Keepstar up there, I assume those are either disconnected Macarials or guys that just got caught in a bubble and didn't warp away, but they seem to be sitting there pretty consistently as the fight continues, so those are kind of a point of interest.
Right?
Oh, those are our initiative? Okay.
I believe so, yeah.
Are they doing a specific role, or are they doing anything interesting, or are they just kind of showing up in some standard stuff?
I think they're just trying to shoot stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's
maybe
Elise Randolph. Let me just introduce Elise Randolph. He is the leader of the Pandemic Legion, and they are fighting on the orange side of things here. For those you don't understand, Eve, they are in the north. Elise, thanks for coming. Welcome.
Hey. Sadly, I'm not in game. I've been trying to log in basically all day. I've shot 3 Macarials and a Nyx. Crashed after each one. My computer dislikes me.
Well, we heard something about
What do you infield on? Like, what do you have? What ship?
I've got a Raven, and I have an Aeon waiting to jump in.
So what's that disconnected carrier's name, Elise? Tell us all. Yeah.
Okay, it's a little too obvious.
One of the funny things that CCP Falcon said while he was here was, "I just saw the saddest thing: Elise Randolph self-destruct counter on his Raven or something."
And then I crashed before I could stop it, so that was pretty grim.
Yeah, we were talking about the old self-destruct bug when you were doing that, and then we're like, oh, there he goes.
We'll work on trying to get CCP rep in here, maybe CCP guard there, or try to get the Falcon. Again, it is very late for them, but we'll see what's going on.
Do you have any reports, at least, of how it's going from your guys' side? I know, obviously, the disconnects are hitting you guys super hard from what I can see. But how's your kind of feeling of the field going?
I mean, we're pretty much of the opinion that there's a good chance it'll die, but a lot of the battleships are dying, and a lot of the fighter squadrons are also dying from goons.
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot as well. There is definitely a large contingent of battleships dying, but is the system locked down in terms of ability to get back in?
Well, it's not totally locked down. There was a slight bug where if you docked in the Keepstar to kind of reset yourself, the undock button didn't exist. So
We've had that one before. Yeah.
I've been stuck on the login screen for about 55 minutes, I think.
Oh, that's less time than I've been there.
Yeah, but I mean, people that crash, they can generally get in. People are saying it's a little bit slow to cycle guns, but it's not horrible, I guess. I've seen way worse. I mean, if you've played Eve only in the last 2 or 3 years, this is probably going to be the worst experience of your Eve life. But if you've played for like 10, this is only like top 10.
Yeah, this doesn't strike me as like incredibly horrible. The grid is moving in a very consistent method, and obviously there's mass disconnects, but that's pretty standard for this level of stuff.
This is, well, I'll say this. This is probably the worst I can recall in terms of trying to get back in at all. I don't think I've ever spent over. I mean, it was 6:30 p.m. Eastern time, so an hour and 35 minutes ago when I initiated a relog after sinoing into 9TAC4 and getting stuck for 15 minutes in a warp tunnel that went nowhere and loss of chat and all that kind of shit. So we're talking, 90 minutes now. I know somebody else where it's been 2 hours just trying to, and have gotten kicked back to character selection twice.
Yeah.
Stuff is consistently dying, so that's the good thing. We were kind of like theory crafting there was going to be a hard cap on the amount of people in system. I know.
Yeah, it seemed to
Ragnar
be
thought it was
hard
gonna be
capping
6K.
around 5,600 there. Like when I was observing around 5,600 at the start of this fight, it seemed like the server would just not, like every time somebody came in, somebody was getting dropped kind of thing. Around, like it was 5560 or something, I think it was, and like the local count just went up and down, up and down, up and down, like almost exactly on that number. So I thought it had kind of hit that number, but it's like obviously now it's at 3,500, so it's.
I think a lot of what happened as well is around that same time, NC decided to make the call to bring the Titans in to start clearing some DPS off a little bit faster, because that's one of the good things that they can do.
Yeah,
and
we can certainly do that.
That definitely has kind of made things way worse for everyone else. And I think the server is just now starting to catch up to the beginning of that. I know one of the NC pilots I was talking to him, he maybe about 5 minutes ago, he was just able to load grid, and he had jumped in maybe 3 hours ago.
Great.
Falcon went out for a late dinner and now he's back.
Falcon, is your sound sorted?
Certainly is. You guys hear me okay?
You're a bit low, but that might just be me. How about it?
And I use low as well.
Okay.
Hold up a couple of secs.
And we also have Celine back. He's from Mercenary Coalition. Mercenary Coalition fights on the northern side.
I would love to be able to actually load this. This looks like a lot of.
Would you know?
By the way, Elise, could you do me a favor and tell whoever's got their Space Spirited Fighters at the top of the Keepstar to get that shit like down there? It's driving me insane. There's like 100 Space Spirited Fighters killing like 4. It's like, it's what do they call it when people get triggered? Oh, I'm getting triggered by these.
But until they kill their 4, their mission is not successful.
Well, if you look at the top there, you've got like this one little blue fighter surrounded by 12 others, and there's one that's surrounded by like 16. It's
the little
like
fighter that could.
Yeah, that's a blue hero.
So here's the thing. At least 2 of those wings are probably from one of my carriers that I've been trying to log back in for 2 hours, and the little Valkyrie girls are just like spinning in circles. Like, why doesn't he tell us what to do?
No, actually, you can see most of those fighter squads are moving. Like they're visibly moving on the screen here, so they're not an inactive pilot.
He's
carriers.
I think Dan Cool had mentioned he's running links on our side that he's only used 21 of the link scripts. So 21 minutes of real time has actually elapsed, or rather 21 real minutes have elapsed during this entire time. So
that's interesting.
I was listening to a stream a minute ago, and someone made the comment. I think it might have been Dirk who said that this is, in terms of getting back in, this is the worst they've ever seen, and I agree. It's amazing that it can sustain what it's sustaining, the hardware, but I've been through a lot of these before, and I'm usually the guy's like, get a better computer, and like I got just a new computer and I'm having hell. I've never had this much of an issue getting back into a fight if it ever dropped me. It's just unreal.
I mean, it'll ease up. That's the thing. A lot of it, I think, has to do with not only the scale of the fight, but the types of things that are fighting, like throwing at your fighters. We know that this causes a lot of lag, jumping in a bunch of people, hitting them all with smart bombs and ECM bursts. And all of this, like the current meta for Keepstar fights and Citadel fights, all produce a shit ton of lag. So that's awful. It's not necessarily like intended. It's just how, the game has developed and how like the fighting style.
I just think fighters fighting fighters as well. It's all.
Oh, those 16 dudes at the top just killed their target.
Nice. Let's see what they do.
They're gonna go home now.
Now they gotta turn around and look for Celine and feel abandoned.
Well, in likelihood, they've got to now traverse the 200-kilometer stretch to get to the south of the Keepstar, where all the rest of the action
turn around and look for Celine,
or they can start. Well, actually, you know what? There's enough fighters around like 200-kilometer southeastern side of the Keepstar in our two-dimensional view of it. I'm sure that would probably be the best. Or they can start.
I just kind of want to address something here that's come up a few times in chat out there that I've seen. Have CCP put a limit in the system. One of the things CCP won't do is put a hard cap on the total number of pilots that can be in a system. If we want to try and cram in as many as we can and end up with a situation like this, that is technically a better option, a more fair option than CCP just saying, you know what, we're going to cap this at 3,000 or we're going to cap it at 4,000, because one side or the other will take advantage of that, and they will put 4,000 in there before the other side can, whether it be 12 hours in advance or 10 hours in advance or whatever.
So
They'll do that.
Ragnar from Peak said that there was at one point a hard cap of 6,000 that they, or it was actually like 3,000 something, but they increased it to 6,000. That was never really documented that it was removed. So he was pretty sure that there was a hard cap of 6,000 as we're slowly going over 6,000.
Yeah, I mean, you know, another one out there. How about Build a Better Game? You know, once again, this is not an